Hello, welcome to my podcast, Empowered to Thrive. I'm so glad you joined me today. I'm your host, Corrine Powell. I'm an intuitive mentor, and I help people pleasers to find happiness, embrace courage, and experience peace of mind. But say you're not a people pleaser, and you're desperate for change and not sure how to make it happen, then I'm here to help. In this space, you're going to find motivation to live a life full of joy and resilience. We'll talk all things inner wellness. And because I'm a mom, we'll throw in some knock-knock jokes. Just kidding. We'll talk mom hacks and parenting sometimes. Whether it's your first time here or you listen week after week, I am wanting you to know, as I'm always wanting you to know, that your life is so significant. You are so valuable. And I, for one, am happy that you are alive. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And would you do me a favor? Would you go ahead and subscribe to my podcast? Give me a good rating and write a written review. Any of those three things would help me so very much, and I would appreciate it. Enjoy the episode. I'm super excited for you to get to hear a two-part conversation that I had with Michelle Beckner. Michelle is a certified transformational nutrition coach. She has 3 babies that she has breastfed who each had food sensitivities. Michelle lives in the Rocky Mountains where she loves to explore the woods, cook, and drink all the tea. She has helped hundreds of moms and babies survive and thrive on elimination diets while resolving symptoms such as eczema, GI issues, and reflux. I really believe that you are going to hear something in this conversation that Michelle and I had together that's going to empower you, that is going to awaken you to something that you need to hear. So don't worry if you don't have a little one or you don't have particular food sensitivities. We talk about much more than just that. Enjoy the conversation.
Thanks, Corrine. Me too. Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you. It's kind of nice to chat with different people about like different aspects of what I do, because I work very specifically with breastfeeding moms who have babies with food sensitivities. But the stuff that I talk about, can be helpful for anybody, right? So anybody can have symptoms from certain food, like food sensitivities or anything like that. Anybody can have like a troubled relationship with food, right? So everybody needs work on kind of shifting their mindset from where food can actually be helpful to us and not hurting us, even though it feels like it's hurting us or our babies, right? Mm-hmm. And then also how, food isn't the enemy, and we need to stop blaming food for when we're feeling bad. Yeah, it's important and it can make us feel bad, but it can also make us feel good. And there's also so much other stuff that's part of life, right? That we need to keep in mind too. So even though, like I said, the things I talk about, I talk very specifically to breastfeeding moms, I think it'll be nice to kind of talk about it in the sense of like a broader audience too. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the little bit I see on Instagram, you're always like showing us what you're making or what your family's eating through the day. So that's cool, because I think from seeing things like that, it also gives me an idea of whenever I see how somebody does their life or how they eat and the foods they consume, it helps to open up what I think about even as like possibilities for foods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing, it can just be inspiring to see, like, even if you do cook a lot at home and you feel like you eat very healthy and you feel good about what you eat, sometimes it's inspiring to see what other people are doing too. Like, it can give you some ideas of things to do. And I like to share what we're eating a lot because, I'm busy just like all of us, right? Like, we're all busy in different ways. Like, I run a business, I'm home with 3 kids. That's like what keeps me busy. But, we all have our own things that keep us busy. But I can still, prepare healthy foods for my family like all day, right? And, we're not perfect, and that's why I like to share it too. But I like to just kind of show that, like, it's, especially if you're not someone who really likes to cook or isn't used to cooking or preparing food and things like that. I like to show how it can be easy, and like we just can, as long as you have like variety of fresh produce in your house and things like that. You can throw stuff together and make delicious meals, and the kids will like it. And it doesn't need to be as complicated as sometimes it can feel, right?
Yeah, that's good. That's refreshing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one problem a lot in like the food, diet, nutrition coach sort of industry is it can become so complicated. Like if you think too much about nutrition, it can get so complicated. It's like, okay, we need to eat. Just yesterday I was talking, I did a live stream about calcium because a lot of the moms I work with don't eat dairy, right? So we're talking about how to get calcium without dairy. And it's like, I've put out some of the numbers, like this is the recommended daily allowance of calcium and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but we don't worry about, like, don't let this stuff stress you out. Like, don't stress out about like, I need to eat this many calories. I need to have this much calcium, or I can only have this much fat or sugar or whatever. Like, just eat a variety of real whole foods with a lot of color and you're fine. You don't need to worry about all this stuff. And it can get so complicated so easily. And that's not what I want, because we're busy, especially moms. Like, you're stressed about every little thing. Like, you don't have room to stress about food, right? Like, you just have to make it easy, but make it so it makes you and your little ones feel good.
Right. Yeah. Plus, if we're putting all that stress on our bodies as we're considering if we're eating right and if we've done it right that day, that's counterproductive.
Mm-hmm. So. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a lot of times when I work with moms, they're surprised about how much we talk about like stress and reducing stress and doing things like outside of just eating, like, right, just doing things to help you feel good. They're surprised about how much that's involved in what I do, and also surprised about how helpful it is, right? Because they're just like, tell me what to eat. I just want to know what to eat, what I can eat, what I can't eat. It's like, hold on, guys. Like, let's feel good about ourselves first, right? And let's feel good about what we're doing and not make it just like another thing on our to-do list. Like, to do, take care of myself, to do, take care of baby, to do, cook food. Like, it's not our to-do list, it's our life, right? So let's find a way to make it like a sustainable life for us that we enjoy. And it's not hurting our babies, or it's not hurting us if we have food sensitivities. And it's like, it's just finding that balance that makes you feel good.
What's one of the biggest areas, like the biggest questions or complaints that's brought up to you when it comes to like food and how it's affecting our body?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot of times people will come to me because, and like I said, like I talk specifically about babies with food sensitivities, but it can be the same thing. Like if it's you or someone, you know, that's like experiences the same stuff, but they're like, a lot of the moms that come to me think they can't eat anything. Their baby's reacting to everything. So they eliminate like almost every food from their diet just to help their baby feel better, which, like, yeah, we'll do anything to help our babies, right? But then it gets to the point where they're not eating enough. They're stressing, not just because they don't know what to eat and they can't eat enough to feed themselves, let alone if they're breastfeeding to nourish their baby. But then they're also stressing about like every little bad night, which all babies have, right? Mm-hmm. Like, babies aren't perfect. Mm-hmm. Or like every diaper or every little spit up, or so on top of stressing about food, then they're like overthinking a lot of the symptoms that their babies are experiencing. And then, so they come to me like, I can't eat anything. Like, what do I do? So a lot of the times the moms that I work with, their biggest complaint is like, I'm eating 5 things and it's not helping. It's like, well, of course it's not helping. You're only eating 5 things and you're stressed out, right? Yeah. And on top of that, you have an uncomfortable baby. So we really, really need to get to the root cause of like, what is the root of your baby symptoms for real? And which of these symptoms are baby symptoms and like just normal baby stuff? And which of these are like things that we can actually help, right? Baby feel more comfortable. So then we'll work through. So when the moms come to me like that, where they've eliminated so many foods, the first thing we do is working on adding back in as many foods as possible, and then kind of start from there. And that's like the practical thing that we do, right? Like, okay, here are some foods that we can start adding back in. And then on top of that, we start working on shifting our mindset. Food is not the enemy. That's what I say all the time. We need to stop blaming food. Yeah. Food is not the enemy. If baby had a bad night, or a funky rash, or if you're like if you're just not feeling good or whatever, it's people, like so easily. And I do the same thing, even with my third baby. Like if she had a bad night, I'm like, what did I eat? Right. But we need to take a step back and change that mindset to not always be blaming food and making it the enemy. And thinking through like, okay, what are all the options here? Am I stressed out right now? Are we moving? Like, is there some other, I mean, everyone's stressed right now, especially, right? Like there's big stuff going on. That's hard. So we need to acknowledge everything else that's going on in our life and use food to like work with food instead of having food work against us.
When you said food is not the enemy, like I felt that resonate. Like that is so important for all of us to hear. Food is not the enemy, because it is easy to come to that conclusion, even unconsciously. Like I wouldn't have said that, but as you said it, I'm like, oh, I have treated food like it was the enemy. Just like I've treated other things like they are when they're not.
Right.
And changing the perspective, reconceptualizing, and all sounds like, you know, it's important in this area just as much as it is in so many other things. So yeah, and all three of my kids had a sensitivity to dairy, and I was breastfeeding all of them, and I had to eliminate so many things out of my diet. And it is very hard when that's the season you're in to just be relaxed. And yet it's so important to, like what you said, look at all sorts of areas, not just what we're taking in through food, but the stress factor and all the other factors. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Not everything's going to be perfect. Right. And certainly not everything's going to be easy, especially if you're a nursing mom. But it's just partly kind of just like accepting that and then being able to make the best of it from there. Yeah. And then like we've been saying, shifting your mindset to like, okay, food is not the enemy. Food is powerful. So yeah, it can affect my baby or it can affect me in bad ways, but also in good ways, right? So the answer isn't always just eliminating foods. Sometimes it's adding in foods that make us feel good too, right? So it's like, it's powerful in good ways and not so good ways.
Sure. Yeah. Anything I think that carries power can be used to be destructive or to be the opposite, you know, to help and to fuel. So,
right.
Yeah. Totally. And I mean, you know, I've heard it said kind of like what we think about as we're eating our leafy green vegetables will make a difference in how the nutrients is absorbed into our bodies. So it's so much more than just what's in front of us. And I've had to walk away from being very restrictive around what I let myself eat to kind of going through this natural journey. I think my whole life has been this journey of creating freedom around what I ate, but then realizing what was actually helping me and nourishing me and what left me feeling not at all that way. And then no longer being so afraid of food or the ways it could affect me. And I think that's been the empowerment through the process, because I used to, I didn't let myself eat a lot of things that now someone would say like, what are you doing? And it's not that I even have changed my whole way of eating, but I've let myself feel the freedom in that area instead of feeling like any bit of sugar or any bit of dairy or whatever it is was going to be destructive to me, and kind of enjoying it when I had it, knowing I don't want to eat this all the time, but I'm going to enjoy it when I have it. And I'm not going to treat it like it's a cheat. You know, like I hate that word. Like when people are like, oh, I'm just going to cheat. I'm like, no, I'm just going to enjoy this.
Exactly.
And I am not going to let guilt come in or fear come in or any shaming thoughts.
For sure. Yeah. And I'd love to hear your experience with that, like reconciling that with when you had to be on a restrictive diet for your babies, right? So it's hard. So I want to hear your experience, but first, first, let me say something. It is hard to, find. So when I work with moms, what we always talk about, like, okay, what are our goals, right? Because this is probably just temporary that you're going to be eliminating this foods. So what are your goals in the end? And a lot of times the goal is to, be able to eat what I want, or be able to allow my little one to eat what they want, right? But also recognizing, like, if it's going to make me feel good or if it's going to make me feel bad. You can still eat it if it's going to make you feel bad, but you have that choice and you have that power to choose, right? So that's usually the goal we work towards when I'm working with a mom. Like, once they're actually able to eat that food again, then they can decide. A lot of times they're like, no, I just don't feel good when I eat dairy. I'm just kind of done with it. Right. And then other moms want to go full on back, even if it doesn't make them feel good all the way. But it's just being able to make those choices and being able to recognize it. And I feel like it's also so empowering for your little ones too, because from birth, like, you and them are working together on this kind of like noticing how food is affecting you and your bodies and making you feel. So that's another way it can be so empowering, because you start, like you were explaining, like eating more intuitively, kind of, right? Mm-hmm. Like knowing, like, if something's going to make you feel good, and if you want to eat it, like, if you're past that stage where baby can't have it at all, right. then yeah, no guilt attached to it, no cheating attached to it. Like, just enjoy it and be like, oh, now I feel kind of crappy, but it was worth it, right? Or maybe it wasn't, and you learn. But you and baby are kind of like learning this together. Like, for them from birth, it's like really such a special gift that you've been given, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time when you feel restricted, right? Yes. So I don't know, like, how was it for you when you were trying to balance, like, eating and feeling good, but also you actually had to be restricted? Like, was that hard for you to reconcile?
Yeah. So at the point where I was having to restrict myself for the sake of the kids I was breastfeeding, it felt very challenging, because I was already, like, living in survival and just trying to get by. So then being told I needed to eliminate, at that point, like, dairy from my diet was devastating. I was almost like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is going to send me over. Like, I'm already struggling just to get through my days, and now you're going to take away all of these things that I eat. And it became very clear how much dairy I did eat. Right. But I was, choosing that for my protein instead of other sources of protein. But I also knew it was a choice, as much as I say it in a powerless way. I mean, I probably felt powerless, but I chose it because I wanted to continue to breastfeed my child. And I could see that it wasn't the best for them. My babies, I think, were spitting up a lot more than they should be. And so it was very difficult from that perspective. Yeah, so I guess that was in kind of the middle of things. I definitely didn't love my body, and I didn't love myself very well at that point in my life, in the sense of, like, if I looked in the mirror, like, I was disgusted by, I always saw the flaws. That's what I mean. So I was at a place where I was stepping into more freedom around food and not eating so intuitively yet at that point. I think that's kind of come as the journey's continued. But I would say right now, let me go back a few years. So after not breastfeeding and reintroducing certain pieces, especially dairy, I found that I was more aware of how it was affecting my body. And at that point, I was already more mindful and living more intuitively. So once I realized, like, my go-to was the caramel macchiatos. I mean, I cut way back on the sugar. I never enjoyed them with, like, their full amount of sweetener. But the dairy, I would have so much gas after having, like, a latte or macchiato, that I realized I was so uncomfortable. I said, I don't want to go and order that anymore. So now it's probably been 2 years, and I've gotten maybe a handful in those 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not satisfying to me to have that after effect. So in that regard, there's been things that I've let go of because I actually liked how I felt without them in my diet. But that's not to say that I can't have dairy in any form. I actually can. And I'm okay with it in certain forms. There was something you mentioned, and it's not always going to be this way, like when people are pulling things out of their diet. And I felt like that was worth going back to, because sometimes when we're in the middle of something, foods being eliminated, or we're afraid to try bringing back certain foods in, I think it is good to remember that it doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. So my kids all had sensitivities to dairy, but my son had a sensitivity to dairy for years after, like not just till 2, like till he was, I would say 5 or so. And he wanted to eat it sometimes. So whenever we would have something with dairy that he wanted to eat, I mean, I bought everything that was, goat or almond based or whatnot. But when he'd want to have something dairy based, before he would eat it, we would say, like I would say, or he would say, this food is going to benefit my body. It's going to do my body good, and my body's going to agree with it. And for whatever, I can't sit here and tell anybody like, here's what you need to do and here's what's going to happen. But I can say in our lives that my son is able to eat dairy without any negative effects. And he's 7.5 now. And I remind him of that because for so many years of his life, he couldn't eat it without his stools being affected, his whole body being affected. And now he can. So I love that you brought up that it's not always going to be this way. I mean, I'm not saying everyone is going to be healed of whatever it is that they're, experiencing, but especially when we're eliminating something during those breastfeeding years, it is so important to remind ourselves of that truth. Like, it's not always going to be this way because it can be so overwhelming.
Right. Yeah. And that's something I talk about with the moms I work with a lot because, and I mean, we've all been there, right? And we all still can get to that place where no matter what's going on, if you're in the middle of something that feels really hard, it's so hard to imagine not being in that place anymore. Right. But when you think about it, like, it's not going to be this way forever, no matter what it is. Like, it's going to get better, but it's sometimes it takes someone outside of you reminding you like, hey, it wasn't always this way and it's not always going to be this way. And just like recognizing that can be so helpful, right? Just be like, you know what, I can stick with it. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I can stick with it because I know it's not going to be forever. And even like you said, like, even if your little one doesn't completely grow out of it, right? And maybe they have a serious allergy that they never grow out of. It's at least going to get easier, right? Because you're going to get used to it. It's just going to kind of be your new way of life. Like, it's not like in the beginning, you feel so restricted because it's different from what you're used to. You get thrown out of, I always say, you get thrown off of your food groove, but you're going to get your new food groove, right? And it's going to be okay. Yes. So either way, whether your little one grows out of it or not, like, it's going to get better and it's going to get easier. And we know that for certain, right? You're not going to be in these dark, hard survival mode days forever. That's not what that's for. That's not what life is about.
Right. Yes. And there are thankfully so many alternatives that are easily accessible. So You just heard part 1 of a 2-part conversation. I hope that you enjoyed what you heard today and that you'll come back next week to catch the rest of the conversation we had together. Here we are. We've made it to the end. What'd you think about what you heard today? Is there something you heard that you know you need to take action on? I'm one of those people who loves to not just sit and hear something, but to sit and hear and then go ahead and start implementing, taking action on what I hear, what was stirred up in me. And I encourage you to do the same. If you enjoyed today's episode, or perhaps you heard an episode in the past that really stuck with you, would you go ahead and share that with some of your friends and your family? It would mean so much to me. And also, if you want to connect with me, remember, you can always find me throughout the week on Instagram. I'm Kareen_changeradically. Or you can email me anytime, Kareen@changeradically.com. I'd love to be in touch. And if there's any way that I can help you, please seek me out. Until we speak again next week, I hope that you will remember, in the moments that are loud and busy, and in the moments that are quiet and still, that who you are is super important. You are valuable, and I am so glad that you're alive.